Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's very nice to be here today with you. As I mentioned prior, my name is Diana Rusu, and on behalf of the Empower Women team UN Women, I would like to say hello and greet you all to this webinar on the topic of gender equality in the workplace. We have amazing panelists today, and we are expecting to have 1 hour of informational webinar as well as useful discussion, and we hope you'll engage and be as active as possible. This webinar is organized in collaboration with our champions, Monica Stancu and Ilinca Vasiliu, and the agenda will be the following. We will have a series of welcome and introduction. We will have our panelists to tell us a little bit more how they view gender equality in the workplace and what's the role of diversity and inclusion, and then we will take the Q&A. Anytime, if you want to ask a question, please feel free to do. And if you want to have an audio interaction with us, please raise your hand and we will have an opportunity to speak. As I mentioned prior, our champions, Monica and Ilinca, worked very hard to put together this webinar, and we are happy to collaborate for the second time with them. They are two of our 2015-2016 champions for change, and they were active in organizing activities in communities as well as online via empowerment.org. I would like to remind you that our program, Champions for Change, or how we also call it, Champions for Women Economic Empowerment, represent Empower Women eyes and ears and extended arms to ensure that change for women economic empowerment is reaching communities around the world, above and beyond the platform. Here are some participations and activities that both Ilinca and Monica had an opportunity to engage during their championship. Before starting with our webinar and presenting our amazing panelists, I would like to give the opportunity to Monica and Ilinca to tell us why they are interested in this topic and why they decided to engage in organizing it. Ilinca, Monica, back to you.
Hi Diana, and hi everyone. First of all, thank you for the wonderful introduction. This is Ilinca. My reason, well, as Diana mentioned, Monica and I have organized another webinar on women leaders changing the workplace alongside Empower Women. And it was such a fantastic opportunity, and it's such a great experience to be able to discuss such important issues. So we decided to get together and have another webinar. We initially got inspired by the He for She campaign and thought it would be amazing to get men involved in discussing diversity and gender equality specifically in the workplace. Monica and I both felt like Geoffrey and Mark were the perfect speakers for the webinar, as they are both diversity and inclusion champions. So we really look forward to hearing what you two have to say. Monica, we can't hear you.
Yeah, Monica, please set up your audio.
Hey, done. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So hi everyone, this is Monica. Welcome to our webinar. After doing the webinar, Women Leaders Changing the Workplace, and getting some tips on what women can do on an individual level to advance their careers, I thought that it would be great to learn what, why, and how men can support equality in the workplace. At the end of the day, a meritocratic working environment where people can achieve their potential and feel valued is good for everybody. It's good for employees and it's good for businesses. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you our first diversity and inclusion expert, Mark Mcclain. Mark is the head of global diversity and inclusion at Barclays. He is responsible for architecting a global diversity and inclusion strategy that will leverage organizational strengths, remain nimble in the ever-changing global business climate, and enable Barclays to maintain their competitive advantage by driving innovation to its customers. Mark is a member of the Board of Directors for Business Visibility International and additionally holds leadership roles on the Radius Advisory Board, Women in Recruitment Executive Committee, and Gay Star Business Advisory Board. In 2014 and 2015, Mark was recognized by The Guardian's Global LGBT Power List, the Financial Times 100 LGBT Business Leaders in London, and named to the top 50 global diversity executives by The Economist. Before handing it over to Mark, I would like to encourage you to follow us on Twitter. So Empower Woman is at empower_women. So welcome, Mark. With that, over to you, Mark.
Well, thank you, Monica. Thank you, Ilinca and Diana, for allowing me to be a part of today. I do want to talk a little bit about not just Barclays' position around women in leadership, but also our relationship and partnership with the United Nations on the He for She campaign, and where I really see all of this work that the three of you have so eloquently outlined around women in leadership coming together, and also how we're utilizing the He for She campaign as a tool to invite more men to be involved in women's equality, full stop. So if we could go to the first slide. Great. So Barclays, now over almost 2 years ago, we decided to partner with the United Nations and become one of the first impact champions of the He for She campaign. And what I saw here was a great alignment of the work that the United Nations is doing in inviting men around the world to be involved in women's equality, sits alongside in perfect parallel with what Barclays is doing around women in leadership at Barclays. The intent of driving greater equality is not just something we do from a talent standpoint, or excuse me, a talent management standpoint internally, but also what we're doing from a citizenship standpoint around shared growth and the empowerment of women. So really as a triangle, all of these three things come together well around Barclays' position on women in leadership, the UN's position from He for She around women's equality, and also our position around citizenship and shared growth or economic empowerment of women in the community. As an impact champion, we've aligned, of course, our goals of improving the percentage of women in senior leadership at Barclays to those impact measures and parity measures that the United Nations and the He for She campaign are looking for. Here are some of the results to date. We do report of having over 50% of our global workforce are women. We are in the process of reaching a goal of 26% of women in senior leadership by 2018, and we have seen year-on-year progressive improvement in that goal over 2014, 15, and we are trending again to report a positive improvement in 2016, and then also our commitment to women on boards. Our approach to women in leadership at Barclays is very much a talent management approach. And what I've done from a Barclays standpoint is help architect an understanding of what it is we're trying to achieve and a realization that we have the tools in place around talent management, but it's about getting better and skilling up an organization to utilize our talent management tools to achieve our goals around representation of women in senior leadership. We've also defined senior leadership as our managing director and director core. So as opposed to, say, the top 100 jobs or the top 300 jobs or just our ExCo at Barclays, this is the top 2 layers of our entire organization globally. So it is about tracking hiring, promotion, and attrition of our workforce across the top 2 levels. And that's a sustainable approach over time, recognizing that we're not going to leave great talent in the market, but really being able to exploit the market to make certain we're getting our fair share of the talent that exists. if we can go on to the next slide, how we're utilizing our relationship with the He for She campaign starts to unfold here. In 2016, we revitalized the He for She campaign both internally and externally at Barclays. We've put together a website that looks very much like the United Nations website. It's an opportunity for all colleagues, but particularly men, to sign up to be a champion for women's rights at Barclays and women in leadership. We have seen a great uptake in the second year, and we're now trending, this data is a little bit out of date, to almost 7,000 champions around the globe. And in signing up internally to Barclays, our colleagues are also signing up almost invisibly to the UN's goal on a global scale because our websites are linked so tightly. What we ask of our male allies that are looking to be champions for women are to sign up to very tangible things around mentorship, sponsorship, joining our Women's Initiative Network, which has been a barrier for our Women's Initiative Network of getting men to be a part of the network. And it's a tangible opportunity for men to step forward and show their support. Secondarily, we've reached out to the community. And you'll see here on the bottom one of the pictures of our external partners, Michael Cashman, saying, I'm a He for She champion, to start to also reach out to additional communities in which you may not necessarily think of in support of women's equality, into the government in the UK, the US, private and public sector, and really rallying around women in leadership. Some of the other areas where we're really focusing for women at Barclays is our Global Women's Leadership Forum. We bring our senior women at Barclays together every other year for a full day development and networking opportunity. We started this 3 years ago with 200 women at Barclays. This last year, we had a global summit simultaneously in London, New York, Hong Kong, and Johannesburg that, in addition to a day-long in-person summit, we also wrapped a technology component around the in-person that was able to scale our Global Women in Leadership Forum to over 5,000 colleagues participating in some form around the world. Additionally, I think one of the most interesting aspects of support for our He for She commitments is our dynamic working campaign, in which dynamic working asks the question, how do you work your life? And this is the intersection of our global agenda on gender and our global agenda on multi-generational. And it's really meant to be able to, for colleagues to be able to ask the question, do I understand all of the assets that are available to me at Barclays? And am I taking the best advantage of those assets across my career and life stages? And as opposed to this being a gender focus, it being a colleague focus and a life stage focus, which brings into account things such as paternity leave, sabbatical, mental health and wellness, career break, and how are we utilizing the assets at Barclays to make those benefits of being a Barclays colleague seamless, available to all, and really pushing the boundaries of what's possible. I'm going to go on to then the next slide, and here are some of the communications vehicles that we've used around all of the aspects of our commitment to He for She and to women in leadership at Barclays. And as you can see, we're using multiple channels, as I alluded to earlier, both internally and externally. This year, for the second year around International Women's Day, International Women's Day at Barclays was hosted by senior men. And it was very purposeful in that we wanted men inviting men to get more involved around women in leadership at Barclays to really show the partnership of men and women from the diversity standpoint of moving our strategy forward and our commitment to improving the percentage of women in senior leadership. A little bit different twist this year in our call to action video that we utilized around the world, and for the first time published externally. You can find it on the Barclays YouTube channel if you should be so interested, is 5 of our senior men were voiced over by senior women, and really delivering the message from our senior women in their voice. It then cuts to why being a part of our agenda and also the He for She campaign is so important to them personally and professionally. And the uptake of men inviting men and women being champions together for our gender agenda, and women in leadership has really seen a great uptake at Barclays. Now, that's a very high-level view. I know we're going to go into Q&A, so I'll just stop there and invite any questions that any of the participants have as we go forward. And I guess, shall I now hand it over to Joffrey or back to Monica? You tell me.
We'll go back to Ilinca, who will introduce Geoffrey. Thank you so much, Mark, for your presentation. We already have several questions. We received them in line in the same time, but we will take them a little bit later after Geoffrey will deliver his presentation as well. And I hope this is okay with you as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Diana.
Ilinca, back to you.
Right, so for our next speaker, thank you very much, first of all, Mark, that was very impressive. Geoffrey Williams, as you can see, he's got extensive experience in human resources, including recruitment, talent management, OD, and diversity and inclusion. He currently leads Thomson Reuters diversity and inclusion agenda across the EMEA region, and recently globally launched Thomson Reuters Diversity and Inclusion Index. Geoffrey has had a diverse career journey, starting his working life in the entertainment industry, then moving into healthcare, rail, and media. He is also the co-founder of Rocking Your Teens, a social enterprise that introduces young people to the world of work and aims to connect the teens to a positive and vibrant future. Geoffrey is very clearly extremely passionate about his work and changing cultures and inspiring people to be their best. So without further ado, Geoffrey, please go on with your presentation.
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this conversation. So, you know, for us at Thomson Reuters, we are really truly committed to the agenda of, you know, including everyone and make sure that everyone has a seat at the table. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about our organization and about the work that we've been doing to build gender equality at Thomson Reuters. So Thomson Reuters is the answer company, and basically what we do as a firm is sell information to professionals to support them doing the work they need to do to drive their organizations and to have the right information to power their success going forward. We also lead our Reuters news agency that some of you may have heard of, and again they're about connecting the world to what's happening in real time. Next slide please. So we are a truly global organization in over 100 countries for over 100 years. That makes us pretty old, but we've really been able to utilize the power of our people to drive our agenda for diversity and inclusion. Next slide. So just a quick fast fact, as I said, we've been around for over 165 years. We were founded, or Reuters was founded over 165 years ago, and Thomson Reuters about 100 years ago. And 85% of organizations in the Fortune 500 actually use our data. So I sit within our corporate responsibility and inclusion team, and basically my main purpose is to look after diversity and inclusion, but we try to do this work to make sure that we're being ethical and that we're powering and supporting our people, our markets, and our world. So continue, please. So at Thomson Reuters, like most organizations, we foster a truly inclusive organization where everyone can bring their full selves to work. We embrace diversity of thought, style and experience, culture, race, color, gender, national origin. But, most of all, it's to drive innovation and to deliver a competitive advantage, because any work in this space is about being able to keep up with the marketplace and be able to deliver for your customers in a way that you're providing them with what they actually need. Next slide. So our CEO is very much behind this agenda, and the best ideas and most innovative approach come from people being able to solve issues, and we believe that having a diverse workforce drives us to do that. So next slide. So thinking about diversity and inclusion, a lot of the time when we talk about this, people do think that it's a kind of kumbaya, come to Jesus moment where we're holding hands around the campfire, but it's really about organizations understanding that this is a business imperative. It's about having competitive advantage, sustainable innovation, so having new ideas being brought to the table, but also building someone's brand equity in the marketplace. So for us as Thomson Reuters, we want everyone to understand that we do many different things. So thinking about the economic impact on gender equality and making sure that women have a seat at the table, the fact that always kind of strikes me is that women will account for 4.3 trillion of total US consumer spend, making women the largest single economic force, not just in the US but in the world. And when it says 4.3 trillion, they're talking about the fact that women will actually have financial decision-making power, so they'll own businesses that have that kind of revenue. So kind of tapping into that is something that's key to our organization. Next slide. So, as we all know, when women do better, economics do better, or economies do better, sorry. Next slide. And who else cares? Investors care, our customers care, and obviously millennials, people coming into the workforce, generally are connected to this story and want to make sure they work for someone that is truly ethical and inclusive. Carry on. So what do we do at Thomson Reuters? Well, we have a Global Women Advisory Task Force, which our CEO, Jim Smith, sits on, and it has 5 key components. So it's about attracting and hiring the right talent and making sure that we have the right women coming in to work in our organization. Managing our talent pipeline, just like Barclays, like Mark said earlier on, it's about making sure you have the talent moving throughout the organization and not staying in the same place. But also developing our female leaders and making sure they understand how their careers progress here at Thomson Reuters. But also creating an inclusive workplace where everyone feels they're part of the success of our organization and making an impact that supports our customers and the local communities that we're based within. So how do we do this? We basically have diverse hiring panels where we make sure that we have diverse candidate slates, ensuring that at least one female candidate is a woman. We also have diverse interview panels. So even though you may have a female at the candidate angle, you need those people on the interview panel to make sure that everyone can see themselves when they come into our organization. We also have a people goal for all of our managers, which is tracked twice monthly, and basically that looks at how our managers are developing and managing our staff and making sure that they have high-performing, well-managed, diverse teams. We also obviously have flexible working options and making sure that all of our employees, men and women, understand that they can work flexibly to manage life's requirements. And obviously paternal leaves and looking at investing in technology to have WebEx sessions like the one we're doing today, but also utilizing telepresence and making sure that people know they can use the phone as well. Very simple technology, but kind of not always having to travel. So we manage our talent pipeline by a number of ways. We've got a career sponsorship program, and that's really about looking at our highest potential senior women and making sure that they have the networks to enable them to manage their businesses that they're looking after, but also to develop their careers at Thomson Reuters. Next slide, please. And we also are developing our mid-level women into senior roles. So we have a leadership program for women, which is a 7-month program, which identifies our female leaders and kind of at vice president and director level, and just gives them the skills to enhance their careers with coaching and also interactions with other senior leaders in the business. So they're building, 1, their own network, but 2, a deeper understanding of different business units within Thomson Reuters. We also have our Emerging Women in Leadership program, which is about early careers, women that are coming into the organization and kind of building their skills there. And then the thing that's on the screen right now, the Be the CEO of Your Career, that was something that was generated by our Women at Thomson Reuters network, and basically it was about them supporting their members to think about how do you be the brand of your career, how do you manage where your career goes, and how do you make sure that people understand what you want to achieve out of your career. So they came up with the concept of being the CEO of your journey, and that's the program that's on the screen right now. Next slide. So we really try to create an inclusive workplace, and we do that by having our Women at Thomson Reuters network, which is our internal business resource group. We have about 48 chapters worldwide, from Hong Kong to Geneva to Dubai and Bangalore and obviously London, and they're really committed to helping us think about how we innovate in creative ways that support the female investor and the female-owned organizations. And one of the ways they did that was coming up with an online crowdsourcing ideas to help Thomson Reuters better create things for the marketplace. So it was called Women at Thomson Reuters Innovation Fest. And also in Asia, we had an Impact and Inspiration series where we had monthly virtual sessions where we had role models speak about surviving different things in connected to women, but also being ethical and innovative, and thinking about how we are performing in the places like the Olympics and women's representation and stuff like that. Next slide. But then also thinking about women in technology and thinking about the sometimes lack of representation. For our technology function came up with a 6-month program that had 40 online coaching sessions, and they really kind of built out the experience of kind of in some instances challenging the perception of what a female technologist looks like. So as you can see on the screen, we have some kind of tweets that we had out, which was I look like an engineer. And then basically our female engineers at Thomson Reuters just kind of sharing a little bit about what they do and the fact that they are all women doing amazing jobs and that people can come from many different backgrounds to be in technology. We also are a part of the Grace Hopper and Women in Computing conference and kind of support lots of different things in the wider community. So Coder Dojos, and we have done girls-only Coder Dojos across the globe in London, in Asia, and in various other locations to support women. And we're all about making an impact with our customers and our community. So we've done some amazing work with Mark over at Barclays, but we've also worked with Women at Work Poll, the 30% Club, and if you click through, please. Sorry, next slide. And we've also ran lots of different panel events. So we've had the Risky Women, Wealth Women series, which was about the financial industry, and then looking at the fact that we need to make sure that we have the right women in the right place, but also thinking about human trafficking and using data to disrupt slavery in the supply chain, which in a lot of instances unfortunately affects women in the world. Next slide. Some of you may have also heard of our Trust Women conference, which is led by our Thomson Reuters Foundation and Monique Villa, who's in the picture that you can see on the screen. And basically it's an annual event that where they celebrate empowering women and fighting modern-day slavery. And they have about 550 global leaders from over 50 countries attend. And it's really about making sure that we're shining a spotlight on the supply chain, the fact that in this day and age we still have modern slavery which does infect women, and also empowering women to support other women to get out of these situations and really kind of bring the voice of the younger generation as well into the conversation. And one of the things that was mentioned in my bio was that we launched our Diversity and Inclusion Index recently, and that as well has a gender component. So basically it identifies the top 100 publicly traded companies with the most diverse and inclusive workplaces, and they're measured by 22 separate metrics in the pillar of diversity, also inclusion, people development, which kind of gives them an overall score which adds them into the top 100. But within those metrics there's the focus on the number of women within your organization, the number of new hires that are women within your organization, the number of female managers, and then the gender board diversity. So do you have actually women on your board? How many women do you have on your board? And making sure that as we talk about this space of diversity and inclusion, it's about empowering organizations to see the value of the financial value of doing some of this work. It's also about advancing the cause of women externally, so we partner with a lot of these organizations that you can see on the screen to drive our agenda. Next slide. And then finally, the thing that we're also very excited about is that we launched our external feature which focuses on the importance of women leaders and sustainable development. So we interviewed over 50 leaders across the globe from the private and public sector to share their insights on why women are central to achieving sustainable development. And it's particularly aligned to the SDG goal for number 5. So that's kind of our way of bringing that to life. And basically, for anyone that's interested, please do go and check out the website. It's sustainability.tr.com/women. And actually, that brings us to the end of my kind of overview of Thomson Reuters. Thank you for listening to me, and obviously, we will I can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey. I do really appreciate your intervention and Mark's intervention. It was so nice to find more about the, activities within the organization. I think we can definitely say that it's just a pity that we have only 10 minutes for the presentation, because obviously I would love to know more about the be the CEO of your career, or I would love to know more about the collegiate and life stage focus approach to, the intervention. So, but I also see that we have a lot of questions. So I hope you are ready and Mark is ready, so we can start the Q&A session. And the first question comes from Shannon. And I guess this is addressed to Mark, if less than 1/4 of senior level staff, director and management is currently represented by women, isn't the goal of a percentage point per year rather low? Is there a reason? Isn't this low?
So no, it's not low. And if what we've done is we've utilized predictive analytics to say what should be the baseline. So a 1 percentage point improvement year on year is also a cumulative improvement year over year. So although it looks like a 1 percentage point improvement, it's cumulative over 5 years. And we're trying to affect our overall approach to talent management, not just filling in the blanks, if you will, or checking a box. And that's why when you look at that 1 percentage point improvement as a baseline, that's a starting point to improve the talent management of over 6,000 roles at Barclays, not a very small population. And it's also about building a sustainable approach over time and not taking a programmatic approach to the shift around gender. The programmatic components around development, around attraction, have to be integral to that, but this is about baking into our talent management approach and leadership competencies how we have a sustainable approach to women in leadership at Barclays over time. Additionally, it's a baseline. No one says that is the only goal, that is the baseline. And through the utilization of predictive analytics, right, we can see how quickly, right, we're moving forward versus if we continued the work at pace, it would take us even that much longer to be able to achieve those goals. So it is a baseline. It's not the goal, right? And we do intend to accelerate over time, but you have to have a starting point. To put out a goal just based on what we think might be the right endpoint, because I don't really see an endpoint to this work, right, quite honestly, isn't my approach. Mine is about building and helping Barclays build a sustainable approach over time and not a programmatic approach or a short-term approach. So what we will be doing is we will be restating at the end of the year what our goal out to 2020 will be, right? So it's not just a 5-year goal. It really, truly is a long-term goal.
Thank you so much, Mark. We have a rising hand, and I would like to give our participant, Raymond, the opportunity to address the question himself. Hello, Raymond. If you have a question, address it now, please. Raymond?
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, please.
Okay. Thanks for the presentations. My question was actually about context, because the presentations, I think, start from a certain perspective where things are clear and we know what we want to do. Whereas we're working in an environment, in a development environment here in West Africa, whereby the sort of cultural and contextual settings are actually very challenging. And I was just wondering if perhaps the panel, especially Mark, could talk to that comment about where you start in the context in terms of retention of staff when you're working in a very small group of people who are well-educated women who actually then move through the different ranks, but then how to actually retain those people for any length of period of time to justify the investment. Thank you.
Sure, I'm happy to address that, and probably have to pull this back up more to the global stage and actually tag on to something that Jeffrey said in his presentation across our entire diversity strategy, and that is there's 5 pillars. We don't talk just about gender, but it's gender, LGBT, multicultural, multi-generational, and disability. And we have 3 global impact measures. One of those measures is to improve the percentage of women and underrepresented populations at our vice president and above level. It encompasses what I've said in my presentation around women in senior leadership. It broadens it out, so also answers the question from the earlier question around just the top of the house. This is much broader. I say that because I think in any organization, whether it's the size of Barclays, Thomson Reuters, doesn't matter, you have to have a global view and a baseline view of what it is you're trying to achieve, and then a realistic approach on a geographic and local level as to what it is you're trying to affect within your own population to help drive that ultimate goal. I say it in that way because we could be having this conversation also about our LGBT colleagues or our colleagues who identify as having a disability, dependent upon the societal barriers that are in place in their locale, and we address it in that way. I think the most important advice I could give in a more tactical way would be really about diagnosing what the issue is on the ground. And we do this at Barclays through running regionalized focus groups, making certain our colleagues' voices are heard by geography in a way that we're addressing the need within that geography and not helicoptering in a solution from London to Johannesburg or from New York to Hong Kong, and with New York and London being our central hubs, but really understanding what the barriers for our colleagues are and then architecting what we believe solutions can be within the local marketplace. I'll go back to dynamic working. When we launched dynamic working at Barclays, and the definition I gave around dynamic working is, dynamic working doesn't have a definition at Barclays. It has a question: how do you work your life? What that has enabled us to do then in market is be able to see what are the key barriers around retention in particular, and this is what dynamic working is really focused on, retention and return to Barclays, right? That if you go off to another job, the door is open. We want you back. If you have a regret, right, and we regret losing you, that there is a brand affiliation that brings you back. And that's given enough structure, but yet fluidity to be able to address those critical needs in the market. The other thing I would say is don't try to take it all on. Figure out what are the 1 or 2 top key barriers for women in your marketplace, and then also ask that same group, as we do with customers, what could be the solution set, and prioritize those 1 or 2 things until you can start to show some impact over time. I think where we get caught up is trying to solve the entire equation at once, as opposed to solving aspects of the broader equation, one element at a time to show progress, and then move on to the next investment level should there be. What I've also seen is a lot of times the easiest fix doesn't take a big investment, but it does take recognition that the barrier exists, and getting the right level of support in the organization to help mitigate the negative impact. I hope that's helpful.
I was wondering if Geoffrey has any comments or any additions to this, and I noticed that Raymond wants to have an intervention, probably as a response. Geoffrey?
Okay, I wasn't sure you could hear me. So I definitely agree with what Mark has said about kind of really truly understanding the needs of the people on the ground. I think one of the things that we did as an organization was we did focus group across the world to all of our female employees to understand what were some of the barriers that they were facing within our organization, within different regions. And then from that we were able to implement how we could support the managers that were on the ground in the region to kind of understand what we were trying to achieve as an organization from a gender standpoint and actually from a diversity standpoint overall, and how they could add that value. So I think definitely listening to the voices of the people on the ground in the region is a key thing that I would say is needed to be done.
Thank you so much. I will give an opportunity for Raymond to short comment so we can also take another questions as a feedback to your response. Raymond?
No, I mean, my response is it's fine. It's just that in the context we work in, I mean, a lot of these things take a certain amount of effort, they take a certain amount of resources, and the environment we work in some ways is actually quite difficult to source people full stop. Whether they're women or men, it's actually quite difficult in the first place. So the degree of flexibility you have and the degree of space, if you like, to operate is actually quite limited. And then because it's so ultra competitive in terms of actually keeping and attracting women in the first place, and you have all sorts of different organizations obviously that you compete with, that's the second problem. So you end up in some ways training a person to basically leave your organization to go on to an organization which pays more money. But I think the response is fine for what it is, but just to put it down there, that in the development context, especially in a place like West Africa, some of these things don't easily apply themselves very well. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Maybe we can have a separate session where we can address this in more details. I agree. As a further discussion and more detailed one, personally, with a specific context needs to be done. Ilinca has the next question.
Right. So my question was, what would you do if you saw a manager taking a hiring or promoting decision which was clearly biased?
So I'm happy to take a stab at this. I think this is a very difficult question to answer because I think the first thing you have to ask yourself is how are we certain it's clearly biased? I think I won't speak for Thomson Reuters, but I'll infer this to Geoffrey. I think both of our organizations have done amazing amount of work around unconscious bias within our talent management process to ensure that bias is not part of the system, but I can't be 100% sure, right? I never can be. I think from a Barclays standpoint, we overlay within talent management also our own internal values. And the work that we've done around values and unconscious bias, specifically within talent management, has empowered our hiring managers, and not just hiring managers, let me make this broader, to people managers, to question when they think a decision may be based in bias in some way. And what I mean by that is really being able to question when words such as gravitas are used, or time and role, right, is not clearly defined, and why someone needs more time and role. And we've unpacked that in a way to make certain that we're applying our leadership attributes at Barclays in a way that we're talking about how we deliver leadership, right, doesn't have to look the same, but is our results for all colleagues being taken into account. And we've split that into a view of the what and the how. What does Mark Mcclain deliver for Barclays, meaning am I meeting my objective? And the how is about my values-based leadership and understanding that everyone has a different leadership style. So we are constantly challenging ourselves at exactly that, of taking bias out of the system. But I have to be honest, and I think anyone in my chair or organization would say, there's never a 100% guarantee, right, that societal or individual bias doesn't come into the system, but we do have a responsibility to safeguard against, right, negative impact of bias in some way. Jeffrey, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, sure. So I think for us at Thomson Reuters, we've definitely have also done a lot of work around unconscious bias, but we've also implemented a culture change program that looks at how our managers support their teams. So I think from a bias standpoint, it's also kind of calling out the difference of each individual that they will have in their team being a unique person and not to kind of measure someone against someone else's skill set. So I think the work that we've done to do that has enabled, I would feel, has enabled our organization in most instances to not eradicate bias, but to have people be mindful of it, and for them to understand that they have to kind of truly understand that they're dealing with individuals and not a row of numbers when they're working with people. So I think, you know, as Mark said, it's hard to eradicate it 100%, but it's definitely about the education piece and making sure you're equipping your leaders and managers with the skills to understand that people are people and they're not a set of numbers.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Julissa. She's asking, what do you think is your highest challenge to maintain and keep improving a gender equality culture in your organization?
Jeffrey, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, I can start on this one. So I think the main challenge is continuing the conversation. You know, with everything that happens in the world today, there are a lot of things in the D&I space, I think, that sways you to other agendas, and sometimes it's about making sure that as an organization you keep the momentum going and that you make sure that you actually, for us, I know one of the things that we like to do is to share our information with our leadership to make sure they understand where we are and where we're heading to, and making sure that everyone understands that this work is continual. There will be peaks and troughs, and there will be the need to readdress some things and try new things out to move with the market, but making sure that fundamentally you are continuing to understand that this doesn't stop just because you have gender parity within your organization. There'll be other things that you'll need to do. It's a continuous moving machine.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, I couldn't agree with you more. The other thing I would say is you have to really balance in your approach around programming for individuals and understanding the organizational responsibility to help deliver on your goals over time. As Jeffrey said, this has to continue to be embedded into the organization. I'm always asked, how can we evidence that we're embedding our own diversity best practices? That's starting with, what do we mean by embedment? And again, for me, at Barclays, it goes back to talent management, and is our talent management process, right, improving our output around retention, around hiring and promotion, and have we, as a culture, begin to shift the understanding that diversity and inclusion is role-based from a leadership standpoint. That, for me, is the biggest challenge, is that culture shift of helping all leaders understand they have a responsibility to deliver our work of an inclusive environment, of a values-based organization as part of their day-to-day role, not just from a programming standpoint.
Thank you so much, Mark and Geoffrey. The next question is from, we have so many questions, and I apologize in advance. Probably we will not succeed to address all of them, but we will do our best to kind of combine them. From Laura, are you planning to share the best practices with other companies to accelerate the implementation of a 2030 agenda? First question. And the second question, also from Laura, which are the main differences recorded in leadership style when you bring in women? Thanks in advance.
So if I could go after the sharing best practice piece, the answer is absolutely yes. As part of our commitment to being an impact champion with the United Nations, we are absolutely today working with the other impact champions to do exactly that. How do we share best practice not just across the impact champions ourselves, but more broadly out to the broader community. I will call out Thomson Reuters, Joffrey and team, as being a great partner with Barclays in doing exactly that. Our companies have come together, and I can give you repeated examples of how we are sharing best practice, not just between Barclays and Thomson Reuters, but really taking on the mantle of how do we share best practice more broadly across industry. And a few really simple examples are our relationship around Pride in London and Thomson Reuters Pride in London app, which we've partnered on and bringing information out to the LGBT community. We are partnering in an upcoming event around women in senior leadership being hosted at Thomson Reuters. Joffrey, I have to apologize. What's the title of the event?
Women of Change, or sorry, the power to change.
The power to change, and I think those are great examples that individually organizations coming together in this space has a positive impact in our industry. Joffrey, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, sure. So definitely we are obviously working with Barclays, and Mark's kind of highlighted all of some of the things that we've been working on, and there's a video of the work that we did around the LGBT work. I think in the gender space, we are definitely sharing what we're trying to achieve and what we think, thought leadership. So that's part of what our website that I mentioned, sustainability.tr.com/women, is about, is sharing the best practice that organizations can do to implement gender change within their organizations. I think, in our L&D team that lead a lot of our programs are constantly out there speaking, and if anyone wants to reach out to me after this call, I can definitely connect you with them to kind of share best practice. But we're definitely about empowering others. We are, as an organization, we're about information, and we're about empowering other people to be able to, move this debate forward as a community, because if we all move forward, it means, the world changes in an impactful way.
And if I could add one last thing, Diana, before we move to the last question. Another example, if Laura is in a UK-based organization, is Barclays have partnered with the Lord Mayor to launch This Is Me in the City, which is a campaign around mental health and wellness, where we've taken our own This Is Me campaign from an internal facing approach externally, and we now have over 70 companies that are London-based who have signed up to launch a This Is Me style campaign addressing mental health and wellness in the workplace. So I think there's multiple opportunities for best practice sharing. I think the question actually bodes well for me is, how do I and how do Barclays, and actually Jeffrey, you and I in partnership, continue to make certain there's greater visibility so other companies can then take advantage.
Thank you so much, Mark. We do have one more hand rising, so I would like to give an opportunity to Gulustan to ask the question. Gulustan? Hello? Would you like to address your question? Okay, sorry, just in interest of time, we cannot unfortunately wait. So a question from Hishma. There are several organizations who are introducing the Return to Work program for women who are looking to get back into the workplace. But how about women who have been homemakers, post-high school or tertiary education and have no prior work experience but are now looking to join a workplace after several years? How can organizations help them? What advice would you give such women to encourage and motivate them to join the workforce?
From a Barclays standpoint, we're specifically addressing this across multiple levels, as the question inferred. Our returnship program here in the UK and our Encore program is for women, particularly focused on women, who have left the workplace for whatever reason and are looking to return, potentially at more of a mid or senior management level. We've also have apprenticeship program here in the UK, which addresses the need to continue to bring in great talent, particularly into our retail banking environment. And that addresses multiple opportunities for individuals who may be coming out of secondary school and not have visibility to going to university and at beginning of their career. It addresses individuals who may want to make, who may be mid-career and want to make a career change and looking at financial services as an opportunity. It's individuals who may be finishing a career, such as in civil service, who've spent 20 or 30 years and are not ready to retire but looking for their next opportunity. So I think we have, at Barclays, have started to address the multiple entry points, so it doesn't feel that there's a barrier regardless of my level of prior career experience or, right, my age and previous level of career experience in another industry. So I would suggest looking for organizations that are actually promoting, right, this level of entry. And again, in the UK, apprenticeships are much more broadly available to individuals across industries, not just financial services.
So I think for us at Thomson Reuters, we've been looking at this space and trying to understand what we can do to diversify our talent pipeline. But I think the people that we've kind of partnered with or worked with to look into this is an organization called TimeWise that actually advertise flexible roles on their website, and that is kind of probably obviously UK based. But from a global standpoint, we've also worked with Just for Success that looks at getting women back into the working environment. And then our Thomson Reuters Foundation does a little bit of work with refugees and supporting them to think about their skill sets that come up to the forefront from being a mother and a provider or care provider, because I think there are a lot of skills that you have in the individual that sometimes you don't understand that you have them because you're kind of viewing them from a corporate entity standpoint, but thinking about them in the sense of time management, project management, one of the key things, managing to get everybody in your family to be where they need to be. These are all things that I think these organizations have supported us to understand that they are the skill sets that exist in women who may be in those circumstances, but it's also kind of thinking about how you can sell yourself in a unique way.
Thank you so much. I hope we have time for one more last question. If you agree, Mark and Geoffrey, last question from the multiple ones. And I think Monica has it.
So we have a question from Leila. She's asking, why do we think men have to step forward and support women? What if we wake up in 20, 50 years and realize men were actually direct stakeholders and not merely helpers in gender talks? What if we realized men too needed quite a lot of help to learn about, say, how to listen to and work with women? That is certainly a possibility, isn't it? Should we better consider this, or all keep focusing on helping women? Why do we assume it's only women who need help?
So I'm happy to address this. I don't think anyone at Barclays is making the assumption that women need help, right? It is about the partnership at Barclays for both men and women, and all of us recognizing, right, that in a workplace, first of all, leadership attributes had been male-based in the past. Understanding how our different leadership styles to deliver, right, in an organization does take that partnership. So I very much talk about men and women partnering together to build a more inclusive environment. And it does take a partnership to do that, right? Because if I've been part of a homogenous group over time, I don't know what I don't know. And it takes this learning across difference to really start to help understand what I don't see as a negative impact or a potential negative impact for someone else truly is. I think that's really what we're talking about. We're not talking about anyone necessarily helping or giving a hand up, but really it's about gaining an understanding that levels the playing field, that men and women, right? Someone who's Caucasian or someone who's a person of color, someone who's straight or gay has the same potential and opportunity. And for me, that doesn't come from one group or another. That comes through partnership and understanding of what the barriers we as individuals do face. And I don't know that inherently as an individual. That has to become part of the learning process. Then I think we have a responsibility as leaders to do something with that knowledge to continue to build an inclusive environment across difference and level that playing field. So I hope it wasn't taken that getting men involved in gender equality or women's rights globally in our partnership with He for She is about men helping women. It's about men partnering with women to make certain we truly have equal opportunity in the workplace and in society. That's just my view. Jeffrey?
No, I would definitely agree with you. It's about the partnership, and it's about understanding the skills that both parties bring to the table to generate success for an organization. And one of the things that I've kind of been looking at was a piece of research by a company called Eve of Change, which is coming out of New York, and they kind of looked at the 5 skills that women bring to the table as leaders of global organizations, and it was things that in some instances men don't necessarily have, but it's also some of the stuff that we had as an organization looked into from our culture change standpoint. So it was about thinking about how they may build more better partnerships. They may think about their team members in a slightly different way and actually have that empathy to say, you're not feeling well, go home. And I think in certain instances it's about making sure that men can learn those skills from women so that we're actually managing our people in the right way, but also kind of like celebrating the diversity that exists. So as Mark said, thinking about the the difference between someone that is from different communities and the value they bring to the organization. So I don't think it's about anyone giving anybody a leg up, but we're looking for equal outcomes for men and women within an organization, and that a lady that's coming into our organization today can be the future CEO if she so wishes, if that's the journey that she wants to take. And deciding to start a family and have a life outside of the office is not something that's going to hinder her progression.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful webinar in my opinion. I did understood one more time, but diversity is a key driver of innovation and is a crucial component of being successful on a global scale and also internally within the company. A diverse and inclusive workforce is crucial for companies that want to attract and retain top talent. And I'm happy that we women have opportunity to work in the companies that more and more try to progress and to make us not how a special case, but to have equal opportunity and to be a part of these opportunities and in this life. It's interesting that more and more this subject is discussed. We probably will have more webinars on this topic, as this is a topic of interest for many of our community members. We had a great pleasure to have today as a panelist Mcclain, Managing Director, Diversity and Inclusion, Barclays. Thank you so much, Mark. And Geoffrey Williams, Senior Manager, Corporate Responsibility and Inclusion, Thomson Reuters. Thank you so much, Geoffrey. We really appreciate your participations. And a big thank you to our champions, Monica Stancu and Ilinca Vasiliu, for co-organizing this event and for being driving of change in the community and beyond. We would like to thank all the participants for tuning in and joining this webinar. Thank you, everyone. Until next time.